Welcome everyone to Credit Chat Live. Today, we are so happy to welcome Laura LaTourette, a CFP and self-made entrepreneur who has built a thriving career in financial services. Laura founded the Family Wealth Management Group in 1998 and ever since has been helping her clients achieve their financial goals with a comprehensive and personalized approach, especially focused on helping the LGBTQ plus community. June is Pride Month, and we are thrilled to be joined by Laura today to offer financial tips to uplift the LGBTQ community. And first and foremost, Laura, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. But Laura, you truly have a unique backstory as to how you became a CFP and went on to now run the Family Wealth Management Group. So, with that said, can you just share a little bit about your story?
Oh, sure. Thanks so much. Yeah, I think a lot of women come into this business a little different, and I certainly did. I was in the business kind of as an insurance agent type person, working in an office, and then I actually became licensed as an insurance agent. And I, was living the American dream, had a husband and two kids and a dog and a cat in a two-car garage, and I was not happy. And I couldn't understand why. I just, had everything. And through a lot of self-reflection and looking at things in therapy, for God's sakes, I decided and really came to understand that I was lesbian. And so I then would have to have that discussion with my husband, who was my best friend, and I would have to then, divorce and change our relationship because it wasn't authentic for me. So with his support and the love of our family, I was able to do that. And after telling him, a short while later, like a year or so, I met my wife, who I have now, and we've been together 30 years. So I moved up to rural Georgia with the kids and opened a practice and decided, you know what, we're going to just be who we are and do what we do. And everyone will have to just support and love us because there's no choice. So that's kind of how I got into financial services, because I didn't have any retirement. I didn't think that we should split that. I thought that since it was my choice to leave the relationship, that I didn't want to devastate him financially. We did split up the house and those kinds of things, but I had to figure that out. And so the more I realized I didn't know, I had to learn. And that's why then I started pursuing CFP and making sure that I was working with other people in the LGBTQ community who might have come out without anything from a marriage, or wanted to be their authentic selves and talk to someone about financial planning. So I really just work with people that are kind of like me. I also work with entrepreneurs because I'm a scrappy entrepreneur, and there were plenty up here as well. And women in transition, divorcing or widows. So there's a lot of different types of people I work with. If they're not in the LGBTQ community, they definitely are allies.
That's amazing. First, I love that your family was supportive of this, that your
Yeah.
ex-husband was supportive of this, and that you had the freedom to do this. And I love that you realize that you weren't living your most authentic life, right? And when I was doing some research about how you approach financial planning and how you work with your clients, you really emphasize that you like to focus on the whole self, including their relationship with money, their background, their passions, and their life dreams. How does this holistic approach specifically benefit the LGBTQ plus community, and what insights have you gained from the LGBTQ plus community from working with these clients?
Well, I think, when you have that baseline of trust and you can relax and tell your story and kind of understand the humanness of your decisions with financial planning, or just financial decisions in your life, then it really opens you up to understanding who you are as a person, and then what do you value. I think we spend money on things we value, and not everyone understands that.
Mhm.
They look at that at first and say, what do you mean? I said, well, let's look at what you're spending your money on. Let's look at why you do what you do, because you learned it in childhood. We all learned those things in childhood, some of it consciously, some unconsciously, but we learned it from family, we learned it from community, we learned it from society. So let's take a step back and see who you are, what you did, and why, and then understand that some of those things they service you well. It's good that you know those things and that you're still doing that as lessons, but some of it is too restrictive or it's shameful or it feels bad, and so we try to kind of strip through that and strip it away. So when they know I'm LGBT, they come in with that baseline of, okay, I can tell her everything, because I don't have to worry about discrimination or have her wince if I say
Oh
something
no, she
about
froze.
my personal life because
I
I've
was just
made
gonna say, I didn't
decisions
want to
because
say
I'm
anything.
LGBTQ.
Let's
So it
see.
kind of sets
Hopefully, we
us
can
up
get her
for
back.
a very trusting relationship to begin with. Or if they've got someone in their
Wanna
family, someone they love, their child. I've
oh,
had that happen too, where someone's come in who's, a mom and they got divorced or a woman was widowed recently and then came in and said, my husband was very conservative. My child is transgendering right now. I really want to make sure that our estate planning takes care of my child. And I
Mhm.
couldn't talk to our current financial planner because he was as conservative as my husband. So, we have those real life conversations that just start us off at a beautiful heart conversation. It just is.
wow. Wow. And with all that being said, when you mentioned that, your husband was a little bit more on the conservative side, there were individuals you worked with that might not have been as supportive. Why is it important to have a financial planner who understands the needs of the LGBTQ community? And how can someone actually go about seeking a professional who has that expertise, experience, background?
Well, I think it's important for one thing to develop trust. And in the community, one of the things we have in common is we've all been discriminated against. I mean, it's just this weird commonality. Even if we have supportive families and friends and things like that, we still have felt that sting of discrimination. And we have to come out every day. We come out, we have to make that decision all the time, all day long. So for someone to not have to worry about that, it really does get them to relax and be just a person. So to find us is more difficult. I mean, we do have things like pride planners with FPA, Financial Planning Association. We do have some wording on the CFP board if you're looking for a financial professional, but we don't really have a really good rainbow network yet. We're building one. We're building those things. There's another group called Out in Finance that brings us together for networking. But the LGBTQ community is kind of one of the interesting things about us, I think, is we're one of the most diverse communities because, of course, we are in every profession, we're in every family, we are different genders, we're different people of color, we're different religions, so we have all these beautiful differences, kind of make us like a mosaic of this beautiful rainbow, is kind of what I think. But it's hard to find us. I mean, we have to self-identify. We have to tell you this is who I am. And a lot of folks in the financial services industry are worried to do that. They're worried about, ruining their current career or not building it big enough. Or they're worried about their peers. And there have been some real issues with that, of course, because there have been some real life discrimination. So I just say to them, just be who you are. I mean, if you can and feel safe, be who you are first to your inner circle. Your clients should know who you are. And if they have problems with it, believe me, if you let them go, others will come. So I tell that to young folks all the time. And then also, it's like, there are things that about us that are not any different. We have families, we have, animals, we have problems with our cars, we try to figure out how to budget with our spouses. I mean, we have all these same similar things, but we don't have a lot of traditional roles. So it's like, don't assume just because I'm in the LGBT community, if I'm lesbian, you kind of understand my role as a partner in my relationship with my wife, because it's not traditional. So that's the other thing I tell folks, who are in this industry. I'm like, well, don't assume, ask them about their family. Just tell me about your family. It doesn't have to be, are you married, and, assume it's a husband if it's a woman in front of you. It's, tell me about your family. Who's important to you? Who depends on you financially? Those kinds of things. Because there's lots of questions you can do to bring in that LGBTQ person and make them feel comfortable without having to really go into, another big different way of doing business. It's really not.
I love that. And one of the things I respect about you is all over social media, on your websites, you let people know that you work with the LGBTQ plus community, that you are a member of the LGBTQ plus
Yeah.
community, so that it just makes it a little bit easier for them to find you. It made it easier for us to find you when we started looking for resources for the community, because we wanted to share this vital information with the community. We wanted to connect them with people that they could relate to, or that they could hopefully work with. And I also saw on your website that you work with people from all different wealth backgrounds. So some people think, oh, I can't work with a certified financial planner because I don't make enough money. But really, financial planning is for everyone.
Yeah, it is. We have different ways of working together. Some folks want to do a comprehensive plan. But then if you're not, if you're starting your career and you're just getting things going, and you want to understand how to pay down some debt, or you just want to start some new habits. That's what I always tell people. We are made up from habits. And so we start habits young, and then as we get older, we don't talk about money because we're afraid to. So then we continue habits that maybe not be, good for us. So it's like, how do I develop habits? So we have a subscription agreement, and can work with clients on a monthly basis and help kind of get them and guide them. Which is not the comprehensive planning because they're not there yet. It's a younger generation. That's been really interesting to me. It's really happened a lot more since COVID. We were a remote operation for the last 8, 9 years. So I've always been a remote operation and worked with clients all over the country. But it seems that the younger folks have found me more in the last few years. And if they're LGBTQ, I'm trying to send them to another younger, um, financial planner in my network, because I like to make sure everybody fits. And but I'm hearing, because are not connected to their parents, they want me because of my generation. They just kind of want someone older to help guide them. Now, I may not guide them for 20 years, but it's interesting to see. You can't assume that somebody wants a certain kind of plan. So we start with a plan. I want to do planning first, and I want to meet people first to see if we fit. And if we don't, I want to help them find someone else, or just answer a few questions and let them go. And then if they want to stay on longer, then we can, and we find other ways. But it's not about the money for me. The money comes, but I think, I just I just thought years ago, when I first developed my business, I thought, okay, what do I want my day to look like? Who do I want to spend time talking to? And I wanted a mutually beneficial relationship. I didn't want to feel like a servant or a service person or a product pusher or anything like that. And I wanted to be really clear. I wanted clients that were able to open from the heart. Because if they weren't, I wasn't really interested in working with them either. So, I've had that kind of, that's been my decision from the very beginning. So I wanted to build it slowly. I didn't want to just build it fast. And have turned down people with money because they were arrogant, and they were like, um, demanding, or, just unrealistic. And I was like, I'm not staying with you. I don't like to work with, lots of people that have addictions and things. And if you have a money addiction, I'm not going to stay working with you because you're spending way too much money and you're just arrogant. They're used to working with people who just agree with them. And I'd be like, you hired me to give you advice, not to agree with you. So I think you need to find someone else.
Yeah.
I feel
Kind of
like
veered off there.
you're a breath of fresh air, Laura. And in the time that I've known you, because we've worked together for several years managing, credit chats, or you've jumped on several different credit chats, but you've always, true to your word and what you just said, you always connect us with somebody. You're like, I think this person would be a great fit for this chat. You're really always sharing your network with us. And I think that's so fantastic. And we get to meet a lot of really great people through you. So I'm always thankful for that. And I want to touch back on what you said about working with the younger generation. I would love if you could share just some general advice that you would give the LGBTQ plus individuals who are just starting their financial journey and looking to build a secure financial future for themselves.
So let's see, they're just starting. Number one, I think have patience with yourself. I think some people think you have to be wealthy to be successful, and I don't agree with that. I think you need to get to know who you are as a person and just look at what you spend your money on. It's not good or bad. You just want to see what it is. And then if it makes you feel good to do that, continue doing it. I think that's what we see sometimes is we have this younger folks saying, I think I'm not being responsible, or I'm not good enough. If my parents only knew. I mean, those kinds of things. And I'm like, well, if it's not destructive behavior, of course, you know, do what you value. I have some young folks that like to go out to eat. They like to socialize, and that's part of who they are. I'm like, well, then let's do it. Let's just understand how much we spend so that we can then, fit it in a budget or a spending plan. And let's just be flexible with it for a while and see how it works. Or, they've got too much credit card debt. So we talk about how's it feel. If it feels bad, let's change it. And I think they're not used to that. They're used to more of head discussions about money. And I think money's really about heart. It is not about head. So I'm always trying to help them understand, when you're right, we don't write bills out anymore. When I used to write bills out years ago, I would just get a ache. And I thought, okay, why am I doing that? Well, I was a spender. I was spending way too much money. And I was always trying to catch up. So I thought, okay, if I stop doing that, how will it feel? And so that's what I ask them and talk to them about is learn who you are. Why do I do this? Where did I learn it? And is it still good for me to do it? Because it may not be. And if it's not, then help me change that habit. That's kind of what I say to them. And I do say, have patience with yourself. You don't know everything. You just got out of college, or you just got into your career, or you're trying to learn things. Just start with the basics. I want you to start with retirement only because at some point you want work optional. I don't know when
Right.
that'll be, but you may want to have work optional. So I just want you to start, and we talk about what to start with, and I think they should invest in things that are a little more aggressive because they're young and they have time to lose money. But they're just sometimes too hard on themselves, or they overanalyze and overthink things. That's kind of what I say to them.
Definitely.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're talking about now and really starting to gather together, I think. So, anyone in the LGBTQ community, take a leadership position wherever you are. Try to help in nonprofits, but also in boards in your community. Make sure they know who you are as a person. I mean, I've helped in many of the onboarding. I've helped in many of the community organizations here. And sometimes I was the first lesbian they'd ever really met and got to talk to about things. It was really interesting. But I think I helped to open their minds and hearts to know that we're just people. And the other thing I think, if we all continue to start saying the positive stories, who are we? What do we do? How do we support? How do we help? How are we the same? It won't be so scary, and we can only do that by stepping up and stepping out. You can't just, hide if you feel unsafe. I understand, and maybe you need to relocate. But we really want you to stand up and stand out as much as you possibly can.
That's such great advice, Laura. And you talked about you went to a completely rural part of Georgia, right? And you started living on a farm. I can't imagine how that transition was also, because I don't know what the LGBTQ plus community was like there, but I'm sure well, even the research that I've done, you figured out how to make a network for yourself out there.
Yeah, it was interesting. So when I left the straight world and came into the LGBTQ plus world, at first, I got a little pushback because some of the lesbians up here, didn't wear makeup and didn't have long hair and didn't wear dresses and and so they kind of wanted to mold me a little bit into that because that was who was here in the community, and I was like, no, I'm not coming into this community and changing who I am to fit in. The heck with you. And I think as time has gone on, we've seen more and more, people being able to accept us, even in our own community. So sometimes you see that if you don't go with a certain type of, dress or talk or way you wear your hair or whatever, that people get uncomfortable or question who you are. Moving into the rural area, yeah, my friends in the city of Atlanta said you were crazy. What are you doing? And I said, well, I want to live on a farm. I mean, I just want to. And they're like, yeah, you're in your 30s. Wait till you retire. That's what people do. And I was like, I want to do it now.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, it was a little much for the folks here in the community when we first came in. But my wife was loved. She had already established her business here. She's a massage therapist. People loved her already. So I think that helped us. And
Hmm.
my children, one was a varsity football player and the other one was valedictorian. So, I mean, they could pretend we were bad parents, but, it'd be hard for them to really, come up with that as far as
Yeah.
parents go.
Right.
So, yeah, so we just got in here and said, we're here, we're going to stay. So
Yeah.
let's all become part of the community.
I love it. And okay, Laura, we can't let you go without talking about the llamas. So you're on a farm. You've posted so many pictures of llamas in our credit chats, and I just love them. I would love for you to share how you used your financial knowledge, and you've talked frequently in this conversation about spending money on what you value. So, how did you use your financial knowledge to create a plan and convince your wife that to allow you to have llamas on your farm? Like, how did this happen?
Yeah. I so we have, the good thing about us is we have very honest conversations, and we're really both very independent, and we're both different a lot of ways, but so I always wanted llamas. So when I moved up here, she had sheep. So I said, well, we need something to guard sheep, you know. Um, we live on an 18-acre farm, and we actually, grow vegetables and herbs and flowers and do all sorts of things. So we had this pasture, and she had some sheep, and so she said, okay. So I talked her into two llamas to begin with. Well, then the financial recession happened in '08, '09. And in 2010, we were at a llama show, our first llama show, and I was able to hold on to the reins of a llama, a baby llama. And she's like, "Oh no, no, no!" And I said, "Well, how about we get a couple more llamas?" And she's like, "We just had a recession. I mean, things are crazy." And she's like, "It's not in the budget." And I'm like, "Okay, well, if I can fit it in without changing the budget, can I have two more?" And she's like, "Oh my God, why do we need them? Laura, this is not a need. This is a want." And I said, "This is a need." I said, "I need this llama that I bought. His name was Silver Lining." And I said, "I have just been through one of the toughest markets in the history of financial services. And it was very stressful on us financially. I said, I need this llama. His name is Silver Lining." And he matched my hair, and he's just gorgeous. And he was a baby, he's only 9 months old. And oh, she was mad at me. She's like, "That is not a need." I said, "Yes, it is. Needs are something that we need to fulfill our lives. it makes me smile to think I'm going to have this as a baby, because we could take him in the house. We could take him for PR in town. We could take him to the nursing home. We could do things with him to make people smile. So I did talk her into it, because also my son had gone into the Navy and he owed me some money. And so I said, okay, you need to get an allotment and pay me back monthly. And he's like, okay. So I called the llama breeder and I said, okay, I can afford this a month. And we let me have 2 llamas. And he said, yes. So I bought them on the same money that my son brought in, which was not in our budget. So the most we had at one time were 8 in our herd. And I tell you, it was just something I always dreamed as a kid. I was in a foster home and had a pretty tough childhood. And it was something I wanted. And I wanted for my success and to feel good about me. And they have definitely done that for me. So,
That's amazing. We have to share some pictures
Wow.
of the llamas. So please
Ye-
send us
so-
pictures after this conversation so that we can include them in.
yeah, I'll like add a little llama.
yes, you do.
Love it. Oh my gosh, Laura. Your story is so cool, and I admire the fact that you just go for what you want and you have that open communication and you're just so unapologetically and authentically yourself, and I absolutely love that about you. You're just a breath of fresh air. Like Christina said, I really really enjoyed our conversation. So wanted to thank you so much again, Laura, for your time, and I also wanted to just say happy pride and happy pride to everyone who's listening.
Can you quickly shout out where people could learn more about you or where they could find you? We'll include the links as well, but if you could just share it on the
Absolutely.
podcast as well.
Okay, so if you're looking to find me, you can always Google my name, because, of course, I come up quite a bit. I've done some podcasts and I write articles for Rethinking 65 as well as the CFP board. And I'm, usually out and about somewhere. It's one of the things I try to do is to stay vocal and stay out talking about LGBTQ issues all year long, not just June. But I think one of the things when you're trying to find someone like me is you just keep pursuing that need. Keep looking, keep finding someone, because people forget how to dream. And you want someone who's going to really push you a little bit and help you a little bit more and guide you, not just show you some numbers when you're looking at financial planning. So I think it's really important for me to be out here, and that's why I stay vocal and kind of a disruptor, but someone has to be.
Love it, Laura. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.